Hi, it's a new moon in Cancer in the deep oceanic vastness of the currents of our emotions, deep in the shell that protects us, that hides us, that holds us, deep in the space where we're invited to make a home for ourselves, deep in the currents of the womb that holds everything that ever existed and everything that ever will be, and allows within it the emergence and the dissolution, the rising and the falling, deep in the tidal waves of being human, with all that it entails, with the ups and downs, with growing and evolving and emerging, and with then learning how to descend, how to release, how to dissolve, how to unbecome, so that we can start the process yet again. Welcome to this new moon in Cancer. Welcome to Mama Mandala. I'm Hagar, and I'm grateful to have this moment with you because a new moon starts us on a new cycle, a new lunar cycle, an opportunity to grow something from seed, from darkness, from what feels like perhaps this emptiness and this nothingness, and letting it grow, letting it cook, letting it churn, letting it fill up and open itself up so that it can move itself and grow itself into its fullness, and learn how to then slowly empty back out again. So, with Cancer, with this archetype of mother, of moon, of femininity, of emotionality, of oceanic presence that is all embracing, and also, in a way, the part of ourselves that knows how to be with a really difficult feelings, with a really difficult emotions, with a complexity of the emotional realms. So we are beginning this cycle with this archetype. We've been in the season of Cancer for about 3 weeks now, and we have another week to go with this archetype. So this lunar cycle starts in the homey, family oriented, mother, homemaking, nourishing, generous, tender, loving, and on the other side of her, and I feel that archetype as a feminine, but it isn't feminine in gender. So let's make that clear. It's feminine in code. It's feminine in an archetypal way, and whether we are a female, a male, a non-binary person, a transgender person, wherever we are and whoever we are, this the code of femininity archetypally is something we move with or can move with if it's helpful for us, and if it's not, you can drop it. So it's always an invitation to take what works and what feels meaningful and what feels helpful, and then leave the rest. You don't have to take everything that I'm saying. Know that you don't have to agree with me. In fact, I think that when we listen to or learn with or explore something with someone else, the invitation is, at least for me, is to receive the things that work for us and argue inside ourselves if we don't actually have a relationship where we can have an actual conversation with somebody, to be able to argue the points inside ourselves, to go, wow, I really feel so inspired by something that this podcast person was saying, and this other thing that they were saying really hit the wrong spot. So that doesn't mean that this person needs to be thrown away, or that the other thing that they said that was meaningful for us needs to be released. But there's a complexity, right? There's a nuance that I think is really missing in the world today. And perhaps in a way, the Cancer archetype invites us into complexity. It's a very, it's archetypally, it's a part of us that knows how to weave the complexity of our emotions and how to navigate a complexity of emotions. And the realms of the emotions is, one could argue, a complex one. So it's an invitation, and maybe that's just me, and I really love complexity. So I feel it as an invitation into looking at and swimming with and moving through things that are not necessarily easy to digest, things that are not necessarily easy to put in boxes. In a way, I feel the Cancer archetype as this, it's not even out of the box presence. It's more of a, because it's oceanic and cyclical, because it's lunar, it invites us to not think outside the box, but feel into the ocean that within which boxes get to dissolve. And yet, because it is complex and because it is lunar in its energetic, it invites us to hold ourselves in a shell. So it isn't a box, but it's a home. And being held in the shell, not because that's the only thing that exists, but because the world around it is so vast, we have to find shelter in something that can keep us safe for the time that we need to be safe, and out of which we can emerge and move into a world that isn't safe. So we need the safety so that we can deal with the ferocity. We need the protection of the shell of the crab in the symbolism of Cancer. We need the shell and the protection of it so that we can function in a world that is precarious, that is dangerous, that wants to eat us. And the Cancer is the mother, so it's the universe, so it's the earth and it's the ocean. And in its embrace, there's also again danger, because the mother is nourishing and nurturing, and she holds you and protects you and gives you, in again archetypally, we weren't all so lucky to be born to a mother that nourishes and gives in this generous and beautiful, loving kind of a way. We get to do that for ourselves, though, because it's an archetype. It invites us to wake this part up in us, and to also see, feel into, recognize, learn to deal with the part of this archetype that is in the shadow more, in the less helpful parts of it, in the more, again, the word dangerous keeps coming up because she's devouring. So the mother in her most helpful presence is feeding us, and the mother in her in the shadowy realms is devouring. It's suffocating, right? So as a mother, as a parent, as anybody in the world who tends to something that they create, because we all are mothers in a way, in one way or another, we all nurture and bring something to life. So this archetypal presence isn't just awake in someone who is a mother, who is a parent, but we bring that up and churn that and bring that forth from within us and wake it up with this archetype. I lost my train of thoughts. There was a whole cycle that I was taking us through, and I lost it somewhere. It dissolved in the oceanic presence of the Cancer archetype. But the mother is this invitation to tend to and love and respect and cherish and nurture, and an invitation to see when we and where we suffocate, where the nourishment becomes a pushing. And I think this is where I was going. As a mother, while it is something I try my best to be as aware of it as I possibly can, I also know, because all of us have shadow, and shadow not just as in, for lack of a better, I'll put it in quote, like a negative, but I don't mean shadow only as negative. Shadow is also the things that we can't see, right? It's what's behind us. It's the unconscious. So it's the thing that about ourselves that we cannot really see, that are in hiding, in a way, hiding in the shell, in the shelter of the Cancer archetype. So I try to do my best as a parent, but it's not just as a parent to children, it's a parent to anything that you are creating in your life. I try to do my best to be as aware as I can of as much as I can of the shadow. And I also, it's this invitation to, maybe it's what I'm feeling into, it's because it's lunar and it moves in phases and in cyclicality. It's an invitation to know that I don't know, to know that there's going to be things that I can't see, to have this, I breathe and I release into it, this understanding that I am going to be imperfect, that I'm going to do my best, but that my best is going to sometimes not land as beautifully as I intended it to do the repair, right? Because we're going to have rapture, because we're going to have places where the shell of the Cancer, the protective, loving, boundary home for the tenderness is going to break. We're going to break. We're going to mess up. And then to show up to that breakage with as much tenderness as we can, so that we can do repair. And the repair isn't always going to be fixing that which has broken, that which is broken, that which has shattered. But the repair is sometimes going to be finding a new shell, right? I forget the name of that crab that finds a shell to live in, right? So find a new one, or find pieces of different broken, shattered aspects, and build something new and something else. I think about it of how being a parent, that I'm bringing parent concepts, but it's you can take that metaphorically if you're not an actual parent. But to be a parent to a teenager is this, really, there's like this breakage of what was, and you have to do a lot of repair. They need to repair, you need to repair. And there's this, they're dissolving, right? There's this, when people hit puberty, there's this dissolution of who they've been. And in a way, we can argue that that happens quite a lot in life, in the cycles of being a human. There's a shedding of skin that happens really dramatically in the teenage years, and a building of a completely new kind of a self. So the parent of the teenager needs to do that too, because parent that you once were to this person, and take that inwardly too. That's toward ourselves. So it's toward ourselves. It's toward other things in our lives. It's not just to a teenager. But again, I'm using that because it's a pretty powerful example that can be metaphorically explored in other facets of life, particularly in the inner conversation, but with other things in our lives too. But the shedding that the teenager does is also a shedding that the parent of the teenager needs to do. And as a parent, you need to become kind of a different parent. And you need to show up in a different way. And you're going to mess up. And you're going to kind of fall on your face and be like, wow, that didn't work. Wow, that didn't work. Okay, what else can I do? So it's an invitation to cultivate the fluidity that, again, this archetype of Cancer invites us into. I really love the Cancer archetype because the lunarity, the cyclicality, the moon-like phases, kind of an energy that it invites us into, takes us into the way that we need to be both a shell and an ocean, a fluidity of being that can change, that can move with the tides, again, pulled by the moon, move with the tides, be the tidal wave, be the thing that goes to shore, and then be the thing that grows the shore because it pulls into the depths, and be the home, the boundary, the family caregiving presence that holds it all inside and nourishes, protects, and gives room for something to grow within those boundaries. But then the boundaries need to expand, the shell needs to shatter, the oceanic fluid liquidity needs to take us in so that we can dissolve in the waters and rebirth ourselves anew, so that we can build or find or cultivate a new shell, so that we can protect ourselves from this devouring danger. Again, the word danger comes up a lot, and maybe it's because we live in a time that feels really dangerous. It's a time where the shell of who we were as humans has shattered, and we are not yet have built a new home for ourselves as humans in the world right now. It's like such a messy time. So the invitation is like, how do we move in the liquidity of it? And I feel the seaweed-like energy. Like if you feel into it somatically, it's learning how to float in water. It's learning how to move in this way that is a little different than how it is to move on land, right? It's slower. Again, it's more fluid. And it invites us through the fluidity to not get stuck, right? To not get stuck in, oh, but this is how I've been doing it until now. But to allow a new way of movement, a new way of being. And how do we do that? Learning from all the things that are happening around us, learning from the things that are going on inside of us. There's something that I'm feeling really deeply in the Cancer archetype, and it's this really emotional storm kind of a presence, and the ability to bring calmness to the waters. It's very, I want to say polar, maybe I do a little bit, but it's again, that word complexity, it's an archetype that invites us to be both and maybe I see that in all the archetypes in a way, because they all have a full, kind of like a more full spectrum of who they are and how they act in us and in the culture around us. But I feel really deeply the way that Cancer is the nourishment and the devourment, the danger and the protection, again, the shell and the water around it. So it's this, again, invitation, and again, it's fluid, to move through the phases and to not get too caught in the phases needing to be about reaching a certain phase that is the phase that is the one that's desired, even though you're going to have moments where you're like, I just want to get to the fullness of my moon already. I want to get to this peak. I want to finally radiate in the fullness of my being. Of course, we'll want that sometimes, or some of us are really seeking like the darkness, the quiet, the interior kind of a feeling. But make it really about the journeying through the entirety of a cycle, only to get into another cycle, only to continue to cycle through and keep moving through all the phases of who we are and what we can become. So in a way, it gives us a little bit of a different access to ourselves, because we're living in a world that is, all of us, no matter where we live, we are affected by the brutality of capitalism, even if we don't live in a capitalist country. The culture of capitalism, the modernity and its emphasis on achievement has fucked us up quite a lot. So in a way, the Cancerian liquid, tender, loving mother cyclicality of this archetype invites us to break out of the way that it has been for us, of the way that maybe our culture has damaged a lot of the world with this, how we have been injured and sickened by this culture, and to really cultivate as the cyclicality of nature in us, where it's not about grow, evolve, where our evolution is cyclical. So our evolution is going to include devolution. Our development is going to include dissolution. Our growth is going to include death and shedding, and a rebirth that comes. And we are in the time in the northern hemisphere when the Cancer new moon arrives. It's a time of kind of peak, right? It's mid-year, the Gregorian year. It's the middle of the year. There's an energy of peak. The food is ripe, right? It's a time where we are arriving at this peak. And if you take that into the kind of the metaphorical world of the cycle of the earth in a again feminine encoded archetypal way, it's the mother's full pregnancy, full term. It's the fullness of the moon in the year. But this doesn't mean, that's the best part of the year. That doesn't mean we're all going to feel, I'm in this peak moment in my career for the year. I'm reaching all my goals. No, because within the moment in a cycle, there's also all the other parts of the cycle that are living inside of it and moving through it. And what is really beautiful, I think, and feel about the archetype of Cancer, it's the tenderness. And this tenderness is an invitation. This opening is an invitation into a deeper conversation, with ourselves, into deeper realms of being within ourselves that carry us into a deeper relationship with ourselves, within ourselves, and with others. Because when things are really certain and kind of, oh, it's the shell, it's protective, and that's it, and there's no door, then that's the danger of rigidity. That's what, in a way, we're seeing in this very dogmatic, authoritarian time, right? We have a leader in the U.S. that is so stuck and so certain, right? So dangerous. We're seeing the danger of certainty right in front of our eyes. And the Cancer archetype is it's the antidote in a way right now, because it brings us into tenderness, and it offers us a crack. It offers us imperfection as a doorway into growth. Because when something is perfect, it cannot grow, right? When something thinks it's invulnerable, it can't move. And that rigidity is going to eventually break the thing that thinks that it's so impenetrable, right? No matter what, like when something gets rigid, it gets weaker. When something gets weaker, it like the brittleness, right? And the fragility is there. So the invitation of the Cancer archetype, this motherly energy that is like both ferocious and gentle, calm and stormy, that it holds in itself this immensity that is very inclusive of all the parts, because it's a motherly love, right? So it loves, and no, kind of like, I don't want to say unconditionally, but it's like it loves no matter what. It's this deep love. It's this deep ability to embrace all the parts of self. But it's an embrace that has a crack, that allows a crack, that allows an opening, because it's not going to be perfect, because it's a mother that messes up. And it's a mother that messes up and says, fuck, I messed up. I'm so sorry. Right? It's the ability to be so tender that we are able to sit with and swim in and speak to the breaking and the imperfection, the breaking of the shell, so that we can open ourselves up to the world. Because the majority of this lunar cycle, right, we're going to have another week with the season of Cancer. This lunar cycle starts in Cancer. We have a week more to kind of immerse ourselves in this archetype, and then there's a shift into Leo. So from this tenderness, we're going to come out and radiate into a creaturely, and yet, again, it's always the complexity, and yet royal, sovereign, into the sovereignty of Leo, that is also animalistic and wild. So, again, no matter what archetype of astrology we're playing with, it doesn't matter if you believe in astrology either. It's just ways to access different parts of ourselves. When we're going to embrace this archetype and work with it, so that the door can open to another one, so that we can transition and shift into another part of ourselves. But this radiant, wow, hard to speak sometimes, radiant part of us that is Leo, the roaring lion, that is our wildness and our sovereignty and our royal and our out of control kind of animalistic part. It's going to be born out of the womb of the mother. out of this tender, loving, gentle, caring, again I said caring already, but like this motherly, family, home holding space that is also ferocious. And it's ferocious so that we can learn how to be the lion. It's devouring so that we can learn how to hunt for food, right? The way that like the way that the zodiac archetypes come one after the other and how they interact with their opposite on the axis is very beautiful. We can really build ourselves into deeper conversation when we include more of these parts and see them in relationship. And this relationshipness, this again, home, family orientation of Cancer is the invitation of this lunar cycle, and at least in its beginning, to begin there, to begin in home so that we can go into the wild, to begin in deep emotionality so that we can live with it and rise into the roaring ferocity, to begin in this generosity of the mother so that we can step into the generosity of our own being as Leo. So you can play with that for yourself this lunar cycle, this next few weeks, and tend to it. You can come back to this video maybe every week even, kind of listen to it and see where you are with all of this. I hope this is helpful for you. If you are into this, I also send a new moon and a full moon message to my beautiful, precious mailing list, and I will leave a link for you in the description of the video to subscribe to my mailing list, and you'll also receive a free ritual guide so that you can work with this new moon and create your own ritual for it. It's a very deep and kind of vast PDF that you can download and read through and explore and create rituals for yourself in all kinds of ways. But you can use it today for this new moon, and then you'll be able to receive my my new moon and full moon messages that I send. There's also a Substack that I write that I explore the medicine of muse in these difficult times. So it really helps you to tap into your creativity in all these different through all these different archetypes and myths and explorations of nature. So if you'd like, you can subscribe to that. I will leave a link for you in the description of the video as well. And I'm so grateful that you took this time to be with me on this new moon. I hope it's a meaningful new moon for you. If you like this video, put a like on it. Please put a like on it. Share it with your people. If you're not subscribed to my channel, subscribe to my channel. There's lots to explore already, lots of videos that you can kind of explore with different archetypes. I will leave a link for you for another conversation that I created around the archetype of home, because it really aligns with the home aspect of Cancer. So you can go into more in depth into a deeper part of this part of the archetype. So I'll leave a link for you in the description of the video for that as well. And thank you. I'm just so grateful to have had this time with you. So I hope to see you soon. All right. Namaste.